Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. This is your host, Steve Ramona, and I've got something very unique as a guest today. Not a lot of you are probably going to use it, but maybe someday in the near future or future, you will. We're going to talk about a subject that's actually really important and can be very dangerous for yourself if you don't protect yourself with this. Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve.
Well, we talked about in the green room before the show, you started law school at your elder age, at a young, older age.
Yes,
Why?
I did. I did. I graduated from law school on the same weekend that my college class celebrated its 25th college reunion.
Wow.
I went to the law school graduation. I didn't go to the reunion.
Yeah. So why'd you do that? Why did it take so long?
Basically, life happened. I got out of college and I knew I didn't want to go back to school right then. I was just so burnt out. Um, so I went to work for I was a biology major in college, and I went to work for a virology lab that was a think tank, Nobel laureate think tank, down in New York City. It's called Rockefeller University. And I worked for a guy who will one day win the Nobel Prize. I have no doubt, if he's still actually doing what he did then. But he's not going to win it with me, because once again I was so burnt out that continuing to do more of the same stuff I was doing in college was just, I don't want to do this. So I worked there for a couple of years, and all the time I was kind of casting around looking for something else to do with my life, with this biology degree that I didn't want to have go to waste. And I happened upon a course in technical writing, and I took the course and I had fun with the course. And I thought to myself, well, I've always liked to write, so I wonder if I can do something with this. Well, lo and behold, there's a master's program in technical writing, or there was at the time a master's program in technical writing at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, RPI. So I got myself admitted to that, and it was a 1-year terminal degree master's program, and I spent the next 20 years being a tech writer, tech editor, tech communicator, tech person, not doing the programming, but writing about what the programmers did. And that was fun. I enjoyed it. You'll find I'm all about enjoying things. I think
Yeah.
life's too short not to enjoy what you do. And about midway through that 20 years, I worked for a publishing house called Springer Verlag, New York, just as German as its name, based in Heidelberg. And they are publishers of postgraduate level scientific books and monographs. And I was their computer science editor. This was in the early 1980s. And if you remember, back in the early 80s, floppy disks were actually floppy. You could bend them. And your computer, if it had 640K, oh my God, you'd never use all that memory. Remember
Oh,
that?
oh yeah. Had many of
And
them.
the disadvantage of that was that you could take your full floppy drive and put it into drive A, and a very empty floppy drive and put it into drive B, and write copy A colon B colon, and you would have an exact duplicate of what was in drive A on the disk in drive B. We were publishing a book that had a floppy disk component to it, and we did not want people to write copy A colon B colon. That was just no, wrong, bad. This was the early 80s. Nobody knew that software could be protected. And if it could, then how? So we kind of took a gamble and went with copyright. And it was up to me, as the computer science editor who had gotten us into this mess, to work with the copyright lawyer to come up with the killer copyright statement that would absolutely discourage people from writing copy A colon B colon. And I had fun doing that. We had a ball. We were going through all of this stuff, and researching the case law and all, just having a wonderful time. And then we finished the project. And remember, again, this is the early 1980s, and we'd spent probably 10, 12 hours on this project. I saw the check that we wrote this lawyer, and it was in the 5 figures. in 1980s dollars. And I thought to myself, man, I'm in the wrong business. So life happened and life happened and life happened and life happened. And I didn't go to law school and didn't go to law school and didn't go to law school and didn't go to law school. And finally, as I was divorcing my daughter's father, I thought to myself, it's time to either do this or not. Either do it or just give up the whole idea. So I was in my mid 40s and I said, I'm going to do it. So here we are, 20 years later.
Great story. I love it. And tells us we can do it anything at any time. As we said earlier in the green room, age is just a number. Doesn't matter. Do what you want to do.
Doesn't matter at all.
What interests me is IP, which is what you deal with, intellectual property. It reminds me of Shark Tank, is patents and stuff. All talk about that. But how are people serving themselves, and how are you serving people you work with, making sure that's all correct and through legally done properly?
Well, that's basically how I serve people, is to make sure it's all correct and done properly. One of the things I do is I take things that people have tried to do for themselves. Well, there's an old saying about how anybody who the lawyer who represents himself has a fool for a client. Well, so does the layperson. Okay. This is not something that, unless you know exactly what you're doing, you should do for yourself. Intellectual property law in general, not just patents, but intellectual property law in general is complicated, and it has these odd little eddies and currents and nuances that, unless you spend time doing it, you're totally unaware of. And there's no reason why you would be aware of this stuff. But boy, it can sure trip you up. I had a client who, they were a nonprofit, and they were working on getting their name registered. The problem was they registered the wrong name, and they registered in the wrong class. So they got themselves refused, thank goodness. And once you get to the point where the examining attorney in the trademark office refuses you, you can't really change anything.
Yeah.
Okay. So the solution there was to say, I'm really sorry, but we're going to have to let this expire, and we should file a new application if you want to protect this, properly done this time. I didn't say that, but I'm sure it came through in the undertone.
Yeah.
I help people get out of the hot water that they get themselves into in terms of the transactional part of intellectual property. I don't litigate anything. If somebody wants to litigate something, I will gladly send them down to the road to the law firm that litigates. Not a problem. But I'm the person who will help you get your stuff registered so that it can be litigated if necessary. And if you come into disagreement with someone, I'm going to help you find a way through that disagreement that does not involve going to court and having to present to this stranger sitting up there in a black robe whom you've never seen and who has at that point full control over your life and your business.
Yeah. Okay. Who's the, people listening are going, oh, when will I need IP, patent, and all that? What's a, good answer to that? When will they need it?
When will they need it?
Yeah.
If you start a business, you have IP and you should protect it. If you like to tinker in your garage and you come up with something that you think is the best idea since sliced bread, you should at least have the conversation with the patent lawyer. If you write something, my favorite story with copyright has teeth, and it can produce a lot of money. Okay. My favorite story there was this lady, she lived in England, and she was poor as a church mouse, not a dime to her name. And she had a character who walked into her head, sat down and stayed there. So she wrote about this character, and thus Harry Potter was born. Okay. J.K. Rowling is now one of the richest people in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's also copyright, some trademark, but mostly copyright.
Yeah. But she needs it protected. So it sounds like if somebody's a product or right, and they get a product or service that they know they're trying to make money on, that's when you come in. If you're just writing the book for the fun of it to give your family and friends, there's probably not as much need, right?
No, copyright is cheap. So,
Go
the
that way.
U.S. Copyright Office charges, I think I have to look it up, but I think the registration fee is like 65 or $75 to register a copyright. So there's really no reason not to register your copyright in something like a book.
Yeah.
Um,
How about podcasters? I'm a
if you're,
podcast host.
if you're producing thousands of photographs,
Yeah.
then yeah, you kind of have to pick and choose because those $65 add up. But
Yeah.
if for a book, I would register the book, not hands down, just register the book.
Make sure you take care of it. Podcast hosts are listening, podcast guests, but the hosts are listening to this show. I have a number of friends that are podcast hosts. What can podcast hosts do when it comes to IP?
What can podcast hosts do when it comes to IP?
Yeah, and their program.
Yeah. Okay. Copyright is a, if you register your podcast, register the production as under copyright. And for a podcast, I don't know whether I'd register each and every production, but I'd register the ones that are really interesting, that seem to garner a lot of interest.
Yeah. Or celebrities or influencers.
Celebrities, influencers,
yeah.
Even if it's just people like me, and all of a sudden people are going, oh my God, I need to get this information, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If it were, if you should also think about trademark, because you have a tagline with your podcast, doing business with a servant's heart. I want to see the letters TM after heart. I really do.
Yeah.
And
like
you're doing business across state lines, which is the requirement for a federal registration. So your podcast is being broadcast, and you're garnering whatever it is you're garnering out of the podcast. And you're certainly hosting people from all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's I would put the letters TM, and then think about actually registering the trademark. That's pricier and more complex than a copyright registration. But once you have it, as long as you maintain it, you've got it.
Yeah. And when you say maintain, there's a yearly or is it annual? Or
well, okay, yeah. The in the United States, and this may differ in other countries, but in the United States, trademarks get registered at the federal level, and this is strictly federal. This is not state registered trademarks. Okay, states have their own rules, and they do what they do. But at the federal level, once you get that registration, 5 years later, you file a statement that, yes, I'm continuing to use this mark. Here's proof. You also, at 5 years, it's a good idea to file what's called a statement of incontestability, which just makes it very, very hard for somebody to come along and say, excuse me, but I've been using that mark since before you were. And it makes their lives a little more miserable.
Yeah.
And then at 10 years, you file another maintenance fee, and then every 10 years thereafter.
Yeah. Okay, that's simple. Yeah, but it sounds like it's needed, and you just never know, especially in this world of litigious activities all over the place. And the more protection you have, the better for you. Learn some interesting things about you as a person in the green room. So you started to learn to fly.
Why? Did. Because I turned 65 and I'm not going to enter the Medicare set quietly.
Good reason.
And I could think of no better thing than learning how to fly. And there's family reason for that. My mother flew Civil Air Patrol in World War II. She was looking for the German subs. These are her wings.
Wow.
Okay. My brother is a commercial rated pilot. He's been flying since he was, I don't know, about 23, 24, something like that. He's now 60. He's never flown for a living, but he flies around all over the place. And I got to looking at the pictures that he posts on Facebook, and I was going, God damn it, if he can do that, so can I. So
so you jumped in and doing it.
I jumped in and decided, it's time. It would be fun, and I'm loving it. It's a ball. It's complicated, but I'm loving every minute of it.
What's the future for you with flying?
Well, first of all, I have to get the private pilot's license. First of all, I have to solo, and then I have to get the private license. And once you get a private license, you can you can fly an airplane by yourself. You can't fly for compensation,
Yeah.
which is fine. But I would tend to take my private license and the airplane that belongs to the airplane club I belong to, and go and transport rescue animals from wherever it is they're being rescued from to wherever it is they're going.
Nice.
So
Very, very nice.
I would use it for that kind of stuff, and that does all kinds of things. That turns my club membership into a charitable donation. It turns my flying time into a charitable donation, which means that it turns all the fuel and all the the plane maintenance and all that kind of stuff that's my share of that. And it does some good in the world.
You mentioned animals. That's the other part that I learned. You at one time have 9 cats living with you. That sounds like a kind of a challenge.
It was a menagerie. And I have a 2,000 square foot house. Okay. Well, 2,100 square feet. And these cats all live together. They live together really quite peaceably. The challenge came in keeping them all fed and vetted. So, just cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Yeah.
So yeah, I now have 3 cats, left over from the original 9. And when these 3 are, one's 13, the other 2 are 12 years old. And when they go, which they will do, I will get into fostering cats. And
Good for you.
so that well, I'm 67 years old, so I'm not going to get a kitten because cats live 15, 20 years. I don't know if I'm going to be alive in 15, 20 years. I hope I will be, but I have no idea. So
I hope you do as well. That'd be
thank you.
So the elephant in the technology room, and I think this spills over to IP, is AI. Where do you see the future of intellectual property with AI, and how they're going to, if they even marry together, and what could be potential outcomes?
Nobody knows the answer to that yet. Okay. Most intellectual property has a caveat that the IP has to be produced by a human being. Now, where's the line between AI and a human being? Okay. AI is programmed by human beings. Human beings developed AI. Okay. Chat GPT was programmed by humans, and is still being programmed by humans. Yes, it's generating some of its own stuff, but where do you draw the line? Where does the human contribution end and the machine contribution begin? So it's going, the law does not keep up with technology. Never has, never will. So there are an awful lot of unanswered questions about intellectual property with AI. You and I both know a guy named Dave Ossarensky, I believe.
Yep.
He's an artist, calls himself Oz. And Oz does his own artwork, okay? But some bright light AI artist programmer could come along and take some of Oz's artwork and program it into their AI system and have the AI build on Oz's artwork. So where does the copyright in that lie? Does it continue to lie with Oz because he generated the original artwork? Does it lie some with the programmer because the programmer took and did the derivative work? Does it lie with the AI itself? Because the AI is the thing that actually did the work.
Yeah.
So nobody knows. Nobody knows. It's kind
Still
of a wild west out there.
Yeah, and it's changing every week almost. And you mentioned something that, law doesn't follow technology or doesn't keep up with it. Is that good or bad?
at sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good.
Yeah.
It would be really nice if AI fell into the current legal framework, because then everybody would know the answers to questions like what's the interaction between AI and IP. Sometimes it's important to be able to forge new territory.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, you know, it's AI versus IP. What's going to be the you know, where are the lines going to get drawn?
Yeah.
Are we all of a sudden going to start allowing machines to own intellectual property? You know, I don't know.
It's all in the future. Yeah, and that's the beauty of the future. It's you can positive or negative, but it could be some great things. Last thing, we're running out of time here, but question that comes to my mind: somebody wants to delve into trademark, copyright, IP. What's that first step they should take? What's a great tip? So don't do it themselves. Get on the phone with a lawyer.
Don't do it yourself. This is not DIY law, okay? Call the lawyer. Whether that lawyer is me or another trademark, copyright, patent lawyer, call the lawyer. You know, don't because it's so easy to screw yourself up.
Yeah.
You know, just don't go there. You know, the lawyer's going to be worth a decent lawyer, a decent IP lawyer is worth their weight in gold. You know, call the lawyer. It's something that you know, it will be money well spent.
It's like doing your own taxes. You just, you know, yeah, of course you're 8 to 5 and that's different. But if you're a business doing your own taxes, it's not your expertise. Stay in your lane and let the experts take care of them. The same thing here with IP. Right. Same idea. Well, right. I want to thank you for being on. I learned a lot today. I learned a lot about you, which is great. Love your passion. I love the passion you have in all the projects that you do, and especially with IP. And thanks for teaching my audience a little bit more about this and giving them direction.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, everybody, that's the end of the show. Hope to see you on other shows. If you really like what she's doing, you know, give us a subscribe, check it out, or watch the show again or listen to the show again and learn more from Nancy. Again, we'll see you all soon. Thanks again.